Austin's is pretty good.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the upper left. I'm excited you're joining us, whether you're on YouTube Live right now, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever down the road. I'm super pumped that you're here with us. Of course, I've got Cass with me, and Matt down in the Bay Area is going to be joining us. The Bay Area, I think, has been one of the hottest points as far as real estate goes over the last 2 years. Everyone's watched San Francisco and that general region so much more than I think any place. One, because the news loves to hate on California. And two, because it's been such an interesting dynamic market. So we're going to jump right into that. Matt's going to talk to us about home prices and people moving in and out. And basically everything you need to know if you're in that area to get yourself set up for 2023. So first of all, Matt, thanks for joining us. Will you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Yes. Spoiler alert, by the way, those home prices in the Bay Area did not last for too long. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But my name is Matt Petullo. And yes, I'm a Bay Area agent down here in the East Bay, mostly Solano County, Napa, do a little bit of Contra Costa as well. Been a Benicia boy my entire life, born and raised here, and I absolutely love living in this area. Again, we'll get to why a little bit later, but I'm excited to be on this. What do you guys call it? A live event, a podcast? What is your terminology for this show?
It's like a webinar live stream that gets turned into a podcast afterwards.
Okay, so it's all encompassing. It's like an amalgamation of all things.
Yeah,
it's a hangout.
I love it.
I wanted to do like all these things, and I watched people like, if you guys don't know, like Ray Allen down in Arkansas, he's got this like godly podcasting studio, and I was like, I would take 6 months to build that and do zero fucking real estate. So instead, I was like, what if I just buy a streaming service and we get on here and ramble for 40 minutes, and then I just cut it up into all the things at once. And so far, we've not edited a single show. We just dump it straight into the MP3 format.
Love it.
Don't edit the lives after. Like, you get what you get. So
who needs
real estate's
editing?
been busy. Real estate's been busy.
That's a good problem.
We want to give people information, and then we got to go sell some houses. Sorry.
It's a good problem to have. I love it. So thank you for inviting me to this hangout. I am excited to be on with you guys. I've been watching what you've been doing in the past. Your shows are always fun and entertaining and educational. So hopefully I can bring the heat for everybody listening or watching.
Nice.
Yeah. So Matt, you're a Benicia boy. How long you been doing real estate?
So I've been in the real estate game for just under 6 years now. I started my first year and a half-ish were kind of half in, half out. I was transitioning over from restaurant management. And the first year and a half was just learning the game, learning the business, learning the tricks of the trade, and learning how to be a good real estate agent. And so after that first year and a half transition, I switched over to my first like big boy brokerage. And I was at Caldwell Banker for a couple years. And it was still more growth, more education, again, learning how to do the business, getting the connections in my real estate bubble world here. And after that, for about 2 years, I transitioned to Real Broker, where I am now. And I've been there for a year this month. Well, I guess next month, February, but we're basically there now. And that's where I've been for the last year. And I've absolutely loved each place I've been and what I've learned from each place, because it's been a stepping stone of growth everywhere I go. And I think that was really important to making me the realtor I am today and moving forward. So short answer, about 6 years.
So for the people that don't know, so he said restaurant management at the beginning. All weekend and like most of last week, he like basically, if you get on his Instagram, it's all food and real estate. Like he cooks good food. He goes to eat good places. And I just sit there and drool over his Instagram all the time.
Yeah, people have reached out to me multiple times and said, you need to write a food blog. You need to do a food blog and go to the restaurants and review them. That way people can kind of follow your food journey or go to places that they want to go. Because so many of my friends or local agents, local people will reach out and say, Matt, I'm going to this city. Where do you suggest? Or I'm going to be in this area. Where should I go to dinner? Where should I go for lunch? And of course, there's more questions that they answer, like, what kind of vibe are you looking for? What kind of food are you looking for? What kind of service are you looking for? There's a lot that goes into eating somewhere. I am just a really big food person. I've been around it pretty much my entire life. My first food job was 13 years old. I was working in restaurants, so I was just born into it. I was molded by it. And so that's a big part of my life today is, I think, and for me, it's because I'm a very relational person, and food is something you could share with someone else to build a relationship. And that's what it is to me. It's sitting down at a table with friends, family, clients, whatever, breaking bread with them and having something that you are both indulging in together bring you closer to each other. So food is a very important part of my life for that reason.
Food. He made this
It
like
is
pizza
it's
last
a
week.
great connector though. Like I do something sort of similar on like my Instagram and TikTok. I don't necessarily review restaurants, but I just like show you where we're gonna go eat at. And we do a date night once a week, and I do a little 15-second video of it. It's crazy. You'll get hundreds of thousands of views. The other day I had somebody come in like, hey, we're going to Ascend in Bellevue for our anniversary. And I'm like, cool. Like thank you for telling me. And they're like, oh, well, it's because my wife watched your TikTok. That's why we're going. And I was like, holy cow, like, you make an impression on people with food more than you can a lot of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially because it's so visual a lot of times too. People eat with their eyes first. And so if you really make a good presentation about it, it just it draws people in, which I absolutely love. So that's a great idea. I do the same thing. So every Tuesday night is half price movie night here in our town. And so we go for the movies for half price. We always go somewhere new or exciting for dinner so that we could try a new restaurant or try a place we haven't been yet. And so it's, there's my Instagram reel right there, my feed. So it's silly. I'm sort of a silly goose a little bit, I'm not trying to be Mr. Professional all the time, but that's just not who I am. That's not my angle. And I definitely come from a place of like edutainment and education and entertainment. If you want someone in a 3-piece suit, maybe I'm not your guy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can wear a 3-piece suit, I can wear a 3-piece suit, but that's not my usual vibe.
Yeah, if I want to, I can do it. Well, let's get into that. So edutainment has been a big portion of building your business. Coming from the restaurant industry into real estate. For those of you that haven't been in real estate, you finish real estate school and you know nothing about real estate. And so I think it's really smart, and you probably established a good foundation for your business by taking a little bit of time before you jumped right on in. And then, of course, you jumped into a highly competitive market. The Bay Area is, top end on prices, ultra luxury, and it's been a really good ride. And so one of the things I like to talk about every show before we talk about what's going on right now is discussing how we got to where we're at now. So what was your market like before the pandemic? What changes did you see? And then where are you at now?
Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey for me because I got in a time where basically every 2-ish years, I've experienced a vastly different market. So when I first got into the business, it was very normal, I guess, if you want to call it that. Things were sitting for 30, 45 days, which in the Bay Area is pretty normal. Getting an offer after a couple of weekends on the market, you have to do a little bit of production, a little bit of marketing, but nothing crazy, especially here in Solano County. We're kind of like the slow, sleepy county of the entire Bay Area, where Alameda County, like Oakland and Berkeley, is super fast paced, and Contra Costa, Danville, Walnut Creek is very luxurious and also very fast paced. San Francisco, obviously a high tech area. We are a little bit slower here. And so I was brought into that market and taught you can be slower here. So I learned how to do things the very traditional way. Postcards, mailers, making your phone calls, door knocking, stuff like that, which is a really good foundation to have, because I think a lot of agents, when they first get into the business, they don't want to do those things, which I understand. I don't want to do those things either, but they're so important. They're important to do because, one, they're free. You can do door knocking for free. You can do mailers for pretty cheap. You can do circle call prospecting for pretty cheap. And so that's what I was raised on doing. And that was the first 2 years when I was learning, was just building my relationships with the agents, learning my community, learning the houses, learning how to do a transaction in this business. So that was a good time for me to learn because it wasn't too crazy. Then the pandemic hit. And for the Bay Area, just like a lot of places, everything changed, because now, where these other counties were already really ahead of the game on marketing and stuff, Solano it was the catalyst that really kind of kickstarted the new age of marketing in our county, because you couldn't show houses to people for a time. Like you just couldn't, or people were terrified to think of going in a home with an agent who could be infected, who could infect my family. And, it was a horrifying time for a lot of people. So we really, my team, and by my team, I mean me and my transaction coordinator / assistant, but my team still.
It's a team. It's a team.
Two people as a team. We really, we embrace like, okay, we need to hit the new technology side of things hard. And so we went all in on video marketing for our listings. For myself, we're doing the Matterport 3D model so people could take virtual walkthroughs of homes without having to step foot in it. We really wanted to give you the essence of the home while making you feel like you didn't have to be around people and still get an idea of what was going on. And that explosion here, I was really, not to brag, but I was kind of ahead of the game for my county in that. So it sort of catapulted me to the forefront of, oh, Matt is the video marketing person for my area, which is pretty cool. Like I was way behind a lot of other agents who've been doing it for a while, but for my area, I was one of the first people who transitioned into doing that because it was, you needed it. You needed to do it in 2020. It just, you did it or you were going to be left behind or someone else is going to be found instead of you. So then it switched to that market where it was insane. In the Bay Area, we were seeing, houses were on the market for 2 days, 3 days, and getting 10, 15 offers, all contingencies waived, paid over appraised value, which means the house is worth $700,000. People were putting in offers for $800,000, $900,000 and saying, we don't care what it costs. Just how much do you want? We'll give it all to you. And it was a crazy, crazy competitive market. We here in Solano County, again, because we're a little slower than most counties, we didn't get hit as hard as other places did, but we still were feeling that ripple effect from the epicenter that was San Francisco area out. Yeah. And so we still then had to shift again into that market of, oh, it's not 30 days on market anymore. We don't have time to think about the house. Do we like the house? Well, maybe we can get a deal, or what can we negotiate? It was, do you want this house and do you want to pay more money for it? Yes or no? Because if it's no, that's okay, but you're not going to get it. And so it was tough for me to do because obviously my client's best interest are first. And it was hard to juggle that because should they pay overpriced prices for a house? It's tough to say because if the answer is no, then you're not going to be able to buy something. And
yeah, I think a lot of us faced that in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And it was hard. It was an ethics thing, right? But ultimately it's not our money.
And at the end of the day, one of my mentors first said, it's the client's journey. And I always try to think about that. Where I am an advisor, I will give what I feel is happening. I'll give the market of what is happening in today and what I think I can kind of like foresee into the immediate future. Because anything further than that, you're guessing. Let's be honest. Yeah. You don't have a crystal ball. So it's their journey. It's their choice. If they want to spend it, then they can. And the people who did buy in 2020 here are very happy they did. And that was something that I talked to them about as well, which was, if you buy now, I know it's going to be a bit of an inflated price, but you're locking in a rate that you will never see again because the interest rates were so cheap. They were mid twos. You're never, unless another pandemic happens, which I hope it doesn't. Oh, no. Right? But unless that happens, we're never seeing these interest rates again. So lock in the rate now so that it's cheaper. And we're hoping that this equity build over the next couple of years, if it stays like this, even if it slows down at a certain point, again, spoiler alert, it does. But over those 1.5 to 2 years, you're going to make so much freaking equity in your house. It won't matter if it slows down a little bit. Instead of having $300,000 of equity, you have 250. You know what I mean? Like, you're still good. And most of the people who bought in that time are very, very happy that they did. So then it was that market, right? It was just this crazy, fast-paced, like, what the hell's going on? Everybody's buying, everybody's selling. Wild, 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 wild. And then about 6 months ago, we saw the government come out and say, hey, inflation's sort of an issue, so we're going to start bumping up the interest rates on everything. And we thought, okay, a percentage maybe a percentage and a half, something like that, to kind of slow it down. And they went from 3% to 4% to 5% to 6%, all the way up to 7%. Now, what you have to remember is in the Bay Area, we, as Austin alluded to, have a very high price point compared to the rest of the country. So while a 1 or 2% bump in an interest rate for a $200,000 home, $300,000 home is, it's still a good amount of a raise. When you compare that percentage to an $800,000 home, a $1 million home, it's a huge, huge difference. And it can be the difference between a buyer being able to afford in an area and not at all. Not even like, oh, we kind of got to downsize to something smaller. It's, can we afford this area or we are out? And when those interest rates started to bump up really high, a lot of the buyers were like, we can't afford anything in this area, no matter where we are in California. Even if it's still in the Bay Area, the outskirts of the Bay Area, we have cities like Fairfield, Vacaville that are a little more affordable. The houses that were available for the price points they're in were, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1,000 square feet homes. And these people said, we have kids. We can't live in a box. We just can't do that. So that's when all of a sudden the market started to decelerate at a pretty high rate. Our market slowed down. Gosh, I don't know what the percentage would be, but we started seeing, instead of 1 week on the market, 2 weeks on the market, we started seeing 30 days at first. Then it was 45 days. Then it was 60 days. I think our average got up to just over 65, 75 days on market average, which in the Bay Area is a dead screeching stop. So then we had to switch again of getting back to the basics of, you can't just put a video of your house on the market and people will come and see it. You have to get back to the mailers, the door knocking, the reaching out to people. You actually have to be a real estate agent again and sell the product that you have. You got to put the work in. And so it was back to basics of really pushing the product and just educating people and talking to people about what this market is and what it isn't and what you can do and what is possible to do in the market and what the interest rate looks like and what that is now for the foreseeable future. So it got a lot back to, instead of just this breakneck speed of sell, buy, let's do whatever you can. All of a sudden buyers were like, okay, well, if we're paying 7%, I want to think about this for a minute. Where do I want to allocate my funds? What do I want to buy? This house isn't 100% perfect, so I don't want it. I want something else. And the market really kind of slowed to a halt the last 6-7 months or so. Now, with the interest rates starting to ease up a little bit, we are starting to see a little bit more breath back into the market. We're starting to see buyers do more pre-approvals. I think it jumped. One of the things I saw was from month to month last month, it was a 28% increase in pre-approval acquisitions, which was the biggest jump in, I don't know, was it 20 years or something like that? It was crazy, the amount of buyers going. They just, a sigh of relief to see interest rates go down, inflation start to get curbed from what the Fed had done, raising those interest rates. So there was a lot more comfortability of buyers coming into the market. And now that we're seeing that,
what I was going to say, what even is the average sales price in your market? Because we know ours, but I have no clue what is.
Yeah. So Benicia's market, again, it's one of the more affordable markets in the entire Bay Area. Our average price point right now, I'd probably say for like a single family home, getting into it, $650 to $700 right now. Okay. We have cheaper options like condos and stuff that are in the mid 300s or so, but that's the really low end for a single family home, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,100 square feet, 1,200 square feet. You're looking at about $700,000, $650 to $700.
Pretty similar to my market.
That sounds like you. I was gonna say, that sounds like you, Austin. That's a little bit lower than me, or a little bit higher than me.
Well, yeah. And like you said, Matt, we all were affected by the interest rates rising, but I have agents still back in Missouri. So what a lot of people don't wrap their head around is the Midwest and the South, when their price point is $180,000 to $300,000. Yeah, you take a 1% hit, on your loan, it's going to hurt. But when you take a 1% hit on your loan and you're going to be spending $800,000 to $1 million, it doesn't hurt. It cuts your legs out, and you're done completely.
Yeah, and that's why curtailing something we were talking about in the pre-show, just to kind of segue into that, we have had a a lot of people leave the Bay Area for other markets, for other states, really. One of my best friends who also grew up in Benicia, the Vallejo area, which is one of our towns right next to Benicia, the Bay Area, our little bubble here, moved to Arizona because when the interest rates went up, they said, Matt, we can't afford to live in this area anymore because of those interest rates. They had a kid on the way. And so they really felt like they needed to move somewhere else for quality of life. And that happened to a lot of home buyers, especially younger first-time home buyers. It kicked so many of them out of the market, either to continue renting in the area or to move to other places like Texas, like Florida, like Arizona. Those are kind of the three places that most of the buyers from here left, or the people who sold their home at that market said, I don't want to reinvest in this crazy market. I'm going to take my money, buy a home with all cash and just stay there because then I don't have a mortgage. I had a seller who sold their $1.2 million home, which was a absolutely gorgeous home. And they moved to Texas and bought like a freaking complex with it. I mean, it's this massive mansion with land and they're next to a lake. And they said, screw it. We're just going to put all our money into this and just have a way higher quality of life because the Bay Area is becoming too expensive. And so that's kind of the balancing act we're seeing right now is people staying here for the jobs that need to stay in the area and people who don't need to have the job in this area and are thinking of moving elsewhere. So that's always the kind of ebb and flow of the Bay Area.
Portland is getting a ton of Bay Area people moving up here, and they have greatly affected our market. I mean, we were seeing, I don't know what the increases were in your market, but they literally were coming up here with all of their money, all of their California money, and throwing it at houses. And so Portland, in certain areas of Portland, we saw 25 to 27% year over year increases on houses because they would come up. They're like, well, this is because Portland's the most affordable city on the West Coast. And they're like, well, we're going to move there and I'm going to buy like 6 houses with the one, selling the one house in California. So
yeah. And on a local level here, same kind of thing. So when COVID happened, everybody stopped. And a lot of the tech companies said, hey, workers, you can work mobily or remotely at this point. The people who were either renting or buying around the city, which those house prices and rent prices are way higher than out here. They'd have to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house for 1.5 and up to be close to the city. When people could move and work from home, one of the places they looked was Benicia so Benicia's a really cool area because one, it's a waterfront town. We have our waterfront. It's from my home right here. It is a 30-second drive away. It almost has this like kind of beachy town laid back vibe to it. And it's the most affordable waterfront town in the entire Bay Area. So they were looking at homes in Benicia saying, wait. So I can move to Benicia for half the price of what I'm paying for and have an amazing community, top rated schools, waterfront community, zero traffic. Everything is in town. I could do that. Oh, that's what we're going to do. So we saw an influx of especially tech people with a ton of money come in and start driving the prices up in Benicia because they're like, we're just going to make cash offers on all these houses because they're dirt cheap compared to where we're living now. So that really heated up our market out here and had the same effect as what you were talking about in yours, where they weren't going state to state. They just moved over a county or two and were able to get something so much cheaper than what they would have been able to afford if they stayed in their spot.
Well, Matt, you talked about people moving out, getting out of the area, especially jobs that you can. So this article talks about there have been like 57,000 employees laid off by big tech. My market is big tech. Your market is big tech. Here's something I think that's interesting is we talk about people that can move and work remotely. So big tech has been a really solidifying factor for both of our markets, I think.
Yeah.
Well, so when you take a massive layoff of, let's say, 57,000 people, boom, I don't have a reason to be here. Now I've got tech building up in Utah. I've got tech building up in Austin. I've got tech building out, on the East Coast. I can get out of here. So they don't, if you said those people that aren't employed, they can move wherever they want, or they're giving them the freedom now to go wherever and typically maintain, a similar type of of income. And then as we go through and we're getting rid of all these tech jobs and people are moving out of the area, then the next thing happens is we're getting hit with all these stories where all these companies, Meta, Google, everybody is just defaulting on commercial space. And I feel like it's just piling up and adding on top of the very next thing. So my thought is, are you seeing a similar type development out in your area? And how is that? What does the commercial side look like? Are you guys seeing a lot of office spaces that are hitting these like crazy 50% vacancies or completely vacant? Like, how's that affecting your area?
Yeah, I have a friend who works for Gap, and the Gap home office, the overarching like company of Gap. They do Banana Republic and Old Navy and et cetera, et cetera. Their home office was in San Francisco, really close to the San Francisco Giants stadium. And when COVID happened a few years after that, they sold the building because they didn't have it made no sense for them to keep it because it was just empty and people weren't in. And they figured out how to do their work without having to have that overhead. And we saw San Francisco was hit really hard with commercial space because everybody was gone. And so there's been a really big push from a lot of companies here to like get back into the office and get back to work. But unfortunately, a lot of those employees moved elsewhere. And they're like, I don't even live close anymore. Or even where they're like, well, my commute to the city was 15 minutes before. I moved out to Fairfield, and now it's like an hour and a half. And then add Bay Area traffic, which is insane around here. So a lot of times it's a 2 to 2 hour commute each way. They're like, that makes no sense to me anymore. And a lot of these businesses are like, well, too bad, because we have a bottom line and we need to make this office space make sense. And so we all need you to come back to work. So there's a rising, I don't want to say an uprising in it, but there's definitely a rising resentment on that side of things. And there's kind of a tug of war going on right now, but we are seeing a lot of commercial space be sold by a lot of major companies, and because it's just sitting there. And that's the crazy thing, where that sort of space in San Francisco before the pandemic it's like gold. I mean, people would pay astronomical prices to be in an office building or in a high rise or even in a conjoined workspace, something along those lines. To have a presence in the city was big. And once everybody left, and we have major companies that are leaving San Francisco too, as you alluded to as well, Austin, big tech companies moving to Austin, big tech companies moving to the East Coast where it's cheaper to operate. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a big loss of those jobs as well. So another reason why a lot of our market stopped the way it did was because they had just started announcing all those big tech layoffs. And so people were terrified to buy real estate because their thought, of course, was, what if I'm next, right? What if I buy this house where I have a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 plus mortgage and I don't have a job anymore? I can't pay it. So it made everybody just stop. And now again, that we're hoping that's leveling off a little bit. We're seeing a little bit more confidence in the market, but it hit us really hard here in the Bay Area. That was one of the reasons, on top of the interest rates that we talked about, why it slowed down to a screech here, because people were losing their big tech jobs, which our area is known for, at a pretty alarming rate. Just because the companies, and the reason that is because during the pandemic, people had to hire at a rate we've never seen before to keep up with the demand of everything going on and everything changing. And Amazon hired so many people because no one was going to the store. So they had to have the infrastructure of all these people. But now that everything's kind of normalizing again, they have a lot of bloat and a lot of overhead that they just don't need anymore. So they're trying to downsize too, because they need to also save some money, and they run a business. So it's a balancing act here right now. And I think where the scales were really tipped, I think the pendulum swung in the other direction pretty heavily. And now we're starting to get back to a more homeostasis of what I think the Bay Area can operate on.
I think the thing with, and of course, tech, where you're at, tech where I'm at, we're not super far apart, but it's different is, as I'm looking at a lot of these companies, I'm making a prediction. God, this is just my opinion from looking at my minimal research.
Yes.
I'm not an economist by any means. I think a lot of these companies are going through what I'm going to consider a midlife crisis. Like, They hired early on in the pandemic. They built up really big. Life is good. There's a little change, a little pinch. They're like, I don't want that anymore. I'm going to go this other way. And, we saw that very distinct lull that we've all been coming out of now in the real estate sector. And I think they're going to kind of hit that again and be like, oh, shit, maybe I shouldn't have let the, everything, the wife and kids, my employees go. And they're going to kind of rebound. I could be completely wrong, but that's just kind of the way I see it happening. With all the office space, I know specifically in San Francisco, and I know you might be able to speak to this directly, but maybe some opinions. A couple of lawmakers locally have proposed that they take some of those big vacant spaces, which we have a couple in Bellevue that are like this, and convert them directly into housing. So this got me kind of going down this path of what would that look like, right? So it's going to be high rise, it's going to be, whatever. But all of the data I'm looking at in San Francisco, it looks like one of the biggest pullbacks is luxury and high-end condos. So what's your opinion? Should they take some of these high-rise commercial spaces, spend the money, energy, and effort to repurpose them into living quarters? Because I will admit, on the other hand, I know the Bay Area does have a little bit of an inventory crunch. Like we know that. Yeah. So, what do you think about that concept? Just pure opinion.
Yeah, I think more housing in general, just kind of an overarching idea, is A, needed, and B, a really good idea. The reason the Bay Area market is so strong year over year, little dips, peaks and valleys not included. I mean, if you just kind of zoom out, it's up. It's an upward trajectory simply because there's not enough inventory on a year over year basis, especially affordable housing. That's our biggest problem right now. Companies turning high rises into like super luxury condos. Yeah, I guess it would help for those people who can afford that sort of thing, which is fine. But I feel like those people could find housing elsewhere if they got money like that. Like you can figure things out. It makes it a little easier to kind of be like, I guess I could just do this instead. You have a little more funny money to play with. Really, the affordable housing is our biggest crunch right now. We have a very high amount of renters right now just because they can't get their foot in the door and they can't save up enough for a down payment. Even though you can get down payment assistance, you only need 3.5% for like FJ loans. There's a lot of ways you can go about it, but even that to a lot of people is really tough to come by, especially with the cost of living out here, the fact that jobs and wages aren't accruing as high as the cost of living and inflation is going up. So it's tough for people to get in. High rise. I mean, sure, make another $3.5 million penthouse for some guy who can afford it. It's not going to be me, unfortunately, maybe one day. But I mean, at least it would be something to take that away from them buying something in the suburbs where something could be a little more affordable for somebody else. If that high style of living is what they want, go for it. Especially if the building's not being used for anything, might as well make something out of it. Absolutely.
So, and this is like the biggest thing, you're talking about affordable housing. And I think with the San Francisco Bay Area, aren't you a little limited on space too? So like, I know Portland does a ton of infill. They constantly rezone and they're like, okay, we have a 5,000 square foot lot. We can put a second house on it, split it, put another one in. And like the next thing you know, like you can reach out and touch your neighbor peeing in their toilet because the houses are so close. Well, there's also issues with that because there's fire safety issues. So now like one house goes up and you lose a whole block.
And that's especially, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, what is going on down there? Because I feel like, isn't like, once you get past like Walnut Creek, doesn't it kind of go up and like, there's not really like availability to build. So it's like, you got to kind of go up to Napa and around. And the next thing you know, you're on a 2-hour commute, right?
Yeah. And that's the problem. So our cities are built at this point tall, not wide. And so everything's, like you said, up. And the problem is when you start building up, it starts getting more expensive. And that's just the logistics of it. So we aren't really seeing a lot of new builds other than the areas that you're talking about, where it's a little on the outskirts of either Contra Costa County or Solano County, where we have the space for it. Yeah. But then you come into two problems. One, builders they're just not building fast enough because they can't. One of the reasons we got slowed down so much is because the lumber, I'm sure we've all heard about this, lumber during the pandemic and about a year or so ago was like 5 times more expensive than it was. So builders just stopped building because they said, what it's going to cost us to build the house, we won't be able to recoup selling it. Even if it's at an expanded Bay Area price, it costs us too much money to build.
For the people that don't go to Home Depot as often as I do, let me tell you. Okay, so when the pandemic started, a 8-foot 2x4 from like Home Depot or Lowe's was like $3.25. I shit you not. I went in there at one point. They were $10.
Yeah.
For a crappy little 8-foot 2x4. So I mean, like I watched plywood go up, like plywood sheets going from like $20 to like over $100. It affects the house. So then the houses aren't affordable anymore, even though they're supposed to be affordable.
And like you said, the areas that we're able to expand in are not big job areas. They're just not. And so the further you go out, yes, you are able to afford more house, but then you're adding to the commute, you're adding time, you're adding gas. And as we know, gas prices are not the cheapest they've been right now, especially during about a year ago or so when they were insane. So all that is cost. All that is cost to people looking, saying, well, yeah, I can afford a house, but I can't. That my quality of life at that point is going to be so much less because I'm not going to see my freaking kids. I'm going to be commuting. I'm going to be going to work when it's dark, and I'm going to be coming home when it's dark. And I'm going to maybe see them for dinner, and then they're gone. And then I got to go to bed early because I have to wake up at the crack of dawn to be able to make it and work on time, right? It's that whole mindset that people don't want to live a life like that. And again, the only places that we're really able to expand are not like the most desirable places in the Bay Area. There's still wonderful areas, but when people think of the Bay Area, they want it to be closer to a city and more fun and more action and nightlife and restaurants. And the places that we're able to expand don't have a lot of that going on. So it's, again, a balancing act that people, right, of course. And the more expensive areas get, people have to move to other areas. And when they move to those other areas, it starts to open up and businesses see opportunities to create things like that give the people the demand that they have to meet that need. And it's a bit of but it's a slow process, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years and years. But until those years come, there's a pinch of housing and, like you said, just space for more. That's really what we're coming down to.
Oh my gosh. Austin's dropping stats on the chat right now. Holy cows. We're at about 2,400, I'll say.
So here's something that's interesting when we talk about housing, right? If we look at the way these new builders are, and I'm a stats guy. If you look at the way new builders are functioning, there's some stuff that is really, like, in nerd world, really exciting. So if you look at like number of new builds in the United States, right? Look at this number here. Look how low this is comparatively to the past trends, right? Okay, so we're hardly building because, like we talked about, everything's so wildly expensive. Okay, so we're
because we used to be like pre-2008, it was like somewhere between a 800 to 1.2 million annual.
Right, Cass, think about this. This is what you think about. What is the average age of the first-time home buyer right now?
36.
36 years old. Okay, perfect. That's actually the right answer.
I know it's the right answer because I'm a professional.
All right, smart guy.
Here we go. Check this out. So we're going to look at birth trends. Go back about 36 years ago, right in this area. We're at one of the highest peak birth rates of the last 100 years. So we have more people than ever that are hitting the time to go by, and we're building at one of the lowest levels ever. So we're not going to really see much of a break until, either we can significantly reduce the first-time homebuyer age, or we truck along another 5 or 6 years and we start hoping that home builders ultimately end up producing at a lot higher rate.
Well, and the thing is when they're building these homes, they're not building, I hate to say it, they're not building entry-level homes. They're building move-up level homes, because building an entry-level home, but building that 3 to 1,200 square foot isn't profitable. And so we've only got a limited amount of those because most of those were built in the 60s and the 70s. There wasn't a lot of building in the 80s because of the interest rates. And then you get to the 90s and they started building, the average home size in the 90s was like 2,000 square feet. So, and they were the 2 stories. So you don't have a lot of those 1-story like entry level homes anymore because what they're building is 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. So you need to move up. Well, you got to get in the first house first in order to move up. So we're going to have a crunch there eventually too.
And that's exactly what's happening in this area. I mean, you nailed it on the head. Same exact thing. We had a major expansion in the 70s and 80s, especially here in Benicia, even in the 90s a little bit, but it's slowed down a little bit. In Benicia, we have not built a new home area since the late 90s. That's the last time we have built homes here in Benicia, period. So no homes are being built in here. And we've started to again, expand out to other cities, but at a much lower rate. And those houses that are being built are like the 2-story, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, higher range. It's not entry level stuff. And so that's where we're seeing that disconnect between first time home buyers being able to afford and the people just moving up.
So with
I was gonna say it's also exacerbated by the fact that people are living longer and they're wanting to stay in their homes as they age. And when they age, they want main level living. Well, what's main level living? It's that 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot house that isn't being built anymore.
Everyone's a rambler, man. Once these people hit 40, they're like ramblers. I think you're.
Dude, I love me a good rambler.
So a rambler, for those of you who aren't on the West Coast, is also that's what a ranch is for you people. So ranch.
It's the Midwest term.
Yeah, Midwest is the ranch. One thing I do think, Matt, about your market as I've been looking at this last week, I think there's really an opportunity for 2 groups of people. I think you're going to see people, because I know people on the West Coast and the way the minds think. I'm going to lock in. Prices are going to plummet. I'm going to have it. It's going to be good in 10 years. And the other camp is I'm going to go out and find and take advantage of this opportunity. And I don't think you're going to have a lot of people kind of sitting in the middle.
Yeah, as far as like
buying.
Yeah, no, but I mean, are you saying the people who see the opportunity and who think it's going to it's overinflated? Sorry, what exactly do you mean? So I can answer it the best.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think there's 2 mindsets on the West Coast right now, and it's right now is the time to strike.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take advantage and get in. Well, I know I can get in, or I'm just gonna sit here and keep pretending like homes will be $200,000 in California.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. And that is like whenever I post a video on Instagram, TikTok, or whatever. Of course, you have those people that are like, I can't wait. The homes are super inflated and California sucks. And I can't wait till you guys crash back down like 2008. And I'm like, dude, that's never happening. That's not happening. And if it does in California, everyone's getting that. And we are absolutely fucked. Like if we get to that point, you don't want that to happen because then we're all in a lot of trouble. So I think that the savvy buyers, and I was just talking to I had coffee with my amazing lender. Shout out Monica Jones. She was basically telling me that right now until March is going to be the time where if you have buyers to strike, it's going to strike because March, April, May of last year is when we start seeing those interest rates tick up. And as we know, everything goes back a year. So she said the March number of this year is going to be lower than the March number last year. The April number of this year is going to be lower than the April number of last year for interest rates. And because of that, that's when we're going to start seeing buyers start to come back into the market and interest rates really start to drop. So right now, what I'm telling my buyers is the houses right now, you have an option to get houses under ask, which in the Bay Area is almost unheard of. Almost unheard of. I just had some buyers who I got into contract last week. The house had a $50,000 price reduction on it, and I got them another $10,000 under that, which is, again, insane. And that's not because I have some crazy marketing and I'm some expert negotiator. I mean, I'm not bad. I'm not bad. But the point is, it was just the opportunity. And the reason we got that extra 10,000 is just because we asked. And the sellers went, we got to sell. We have to sell it. This is just what's happening. Yeah. And they understand, they're very savvy buyers to know we're getting this house at an amazing price. Such a good price, by the way, that just today we got a letter from the appraiser saying the appraisal's waived because the price is so good. We don't even worry about it. The bank just said, yeah. So what that means is basically the bank looked at the house and the numbers and went, you're getting it for how much? This cheap? Yeah, we're good. Don't worry about it. We'll give you the money for it. We know it's a sound investment. That's essentially what they say when they say that, which means you got a really good deal on a house when the bank doesn't want to make sure that the money they're giving you is going towards a sound investment. That's a great, great thing in the real estate world. So we just got that letter from them today, which shows them they're getting the house for an amazing price. And while the interest rates are still a little higher than what we'd like to see and what we think is going to be in the future, you know what you can do with interest rates? You can refinance. Now, again, I'm not an economist and I'm not a lender, but from all the lenders that I speak to, they're saying interest rates are going to start coming down because they already have. Again, the more the inflation reports come out saying, hey, guys, we've kind of curbed the inflation at this point, the real estate but interest rates are going to start coming down with it as well. So now you're getting a house for the cheapest you're going to get it for, and you can ride that interest rate down as low as it can go. So you're winning on both sides. And the time to be able to do that is going to be coming to an end in the next 2 to 3 months. So if you're sitting on the fence and you're thinking that homes are only going to get cheaper, they're not. Because in the Bay Area, lower interest rates directly correlate to higher house prices because there's more buyers in the market. There's more offers being put in, which means offers bid up against each other and it rises. So once that starts to happen, we're going to start seeing those prices start to go up again. So if you're a buyer and you can stomach those interest rates, right? Because it's all relative. Can you buy a house today and feel comfortable with what everything is today? Because what you're banking on is those interest rates going cheaper and your home price going higher. And what we're forecasting right now from everyone I talk to is that's going to start happening in the next 3 months. So this is the last little moment you have to get in on this opportunity that is going to go away shortly.
Yeah. And like historically over the last 100 years, average appreciation at year over year is 4.22%. So, you know, we've had some years that are down. We've had some years that are way up, but with an average of 4.22%, dude, buy the house now, you know, and then just like Matt said, ride the interest rate down.
Yeah. And I tell people, unless you're trying to like flip a house right now, maybe not the best time to do it at this moment. But if you are buying a house for yourself, you're buying it as an investment property and you're going to hold it for the long term. Historically speaking, if you hold it for 5, 6, 7, 8-ish years, which is what buyers usually stay in a home for at this point, you are going to see a very good return on your investment. And so that's what we're telling people is this is one of, if not the best way to build wealth, no matter where you are in America. This is one of the best ways you could do it. It's one of the best investments that you can have that makes you such a good return on money. And which is why so many people who have a lot of money, you know what they do? They buy a lot of real estate. And hey, if someone who's very smart and smarter than me and way richer than I'll ever be is doing that, maybe I should think about doing that too.
Absolutely. So if we're in the Bay market and we want to heed that advice, how do we get a hold of you?
So you can find me, you can Google Matt Petullo. All my stuff comes up. You can find me on Instagram at Matt Petullo. You can find my website, mattpetullohomes.com. You can find me on my my Google business page, Matt Petullo. Type it in. I'm very easy to find, which I've made it that way. I've cultivated my entire thing so that if you type in Matt Petullo, you can find me. You can find me there. Even if you type in like best agent in Benicia, chances are my face is going to pop up on there. Because I feed Google that sweet SEO juice to make sure that I come up. So I make it easy to find. And if you have any questions, comments, you want to just have a chat about my area, if you're an agent, a buyer, seller, whomever, I am always available for a conversation.
Well, dude, I appreciate you popping on here. It was a really good conversation. I think the Bay Area is such a fun place to discuss, and there's so much moving. And it's really nice to get on here with you and cut through the noise. So like I said at one point, I feel like the media is always on California, and being in Seattle and Casping towards Portland, those are also areas that the media is just always punching in the face. And half the time I get comments on like YouTube or TikTok or whatever. I'm like, hey, just turn off Fox News for like 15 minutes and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
it's not that bad. So I appreciate you giving us like some clarity and a personal insight into that side of things.
Yeah, well, that's what we need to be, right? We need to be the experts and the mouthpieces for our areas because a lot of things, especially in California, especially the Bay Area, we get shit on a lot. And some of it's not unfounded, right? I mean, we have our problems here, just like any other place does. But I think our pros highly outweigh the cons. Like, we don't have seasons here, and that's fantastic. When it gets to like 50 degrees, we're like, oh man, it sure is cold in the Bay Area. I mean, we're sitting at a good like 60, 70 degrees almost year round. It hardly rains up here, which I know is very different from your guys' market up there. And so it's just, it's a climate you can't beat. It's a vibe that is unlike so many other, it's eclectic. Everybody comes together. It's a wonderful community, and there's always something new to do and try. And being so centralized, you kind of have access to everything. You're an hour and a half away from snow. You're an hour and a half away from a beach. You're an hour and a half away from woods. I mean, no matter what you want to be in, we kind of have everything at a couple hour drive away. So there's so much to do no matter what you're into, what kind of hobbies you're into, restaurants, outdoor, biking, hiking. There's something for everybody here. And it's tough to beat that and find that in a lot of other places in the United States. It's maybe cheaper, but then you're landlocked for a lot of stuff. And we got a little bit of everything out here, which is why I love it.
You prefer a reason.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us and for talking all things Bay Area and beyond. It was fabulous to have you on the Upper Left Show. And you guys, if you've got any more questions for Matt, Austin, or myself, please drop them in the comments. And, if you found this video fun and informative, don't forget to like and subscribe to both Austin and I's channels, because then you can check out future episodes of Upper Left, along with any and all of the great content that hopefully we're putting out. I think it's pretty good. Speaking of great content, our next show is going to be February 13th at 2 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Central. And it's just going to be Austin and I. We're going to be addressing some of more the local issues facing Seattle and Vancouver and Portland here in 2023. Things like affordable housing, landlord-tenant laws, Airbnb regulations are really coming up. So definitely come check us out on the 13th. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Cassandra Marks. He is Austin Robertson, and we are the Upper Left Show. Make it a great week, you guys.